Welcome to episode 25 of the Weekly Take Podcast. I'm your host, Dominic Joseph. I go by Dom, too. You can call me Dom Joseph. A lot of people just call me Dom. It's a lot easier to say than Dominic sometimes. If you see me out in public and you listen to the show, call me Dom. It's easy. It's easy on you. It's easy on me. I hear it easier. Even though sometimes when I hear someone say Dom, it sounds like they say mom. So I'm be at the malls, someone will say mom and I'll look the other way. But we're not talking about that. We are talking about NBA, NFL, and college basketball today. I am joined by myself today, and there's nothing wrong with that. You got to be okay with doing shit alone, and you got to be all right with that stuff. And don't get me wrong, though. I do like having people on the show, but sometimes, schedules don't really, cooperate with others. Other people are busy, so hence me doing this solo today. Today is April 3rd, 2019, and this is episode 25 once again. Jimmy Butler, a player who's played for the Minnesota Timberwolves, the Chicago Bulls, and even the Philadelphia 76ers, is now came out and said he nearly quit basketball. And this didn't really shock me too much because as a person who has played sports before, in high school, the first day of football, I didn't want to do it. And, after the first day of getting laid out or the first day of, coming back from basketball and me being tired and sore and me not seeing any improvements in myself, to me, I didn't see it, but I know other people did. I wanted to quit. So I could totally see where Jimmy Butler is coming from in the aspect of he's in the NBA, he's been doing all this work, and what does he have to show for it? But that's to himself. I didn't watch the entire interview, but, I could see where he was coming from with nearly quitting it. There was a lot going on, and I bet you realizing that the NBA is a bigger business than it is a sport to him was intimidating, and I don't really blame the guy. So I kind of stand with Jimmy Butler and how he said he nearly quit it, and a lot of people are like, well, you get paid $1 million, how could you want to quit? And, people with $1 million got $1 million problems, and I'm not saying they have it harder than a person who has $10,000 problems, but I do have that room for empathy to see where Jimmy Butler is coming from, because that is definitely a thing that I'm pretty sure a lot of these athletes go through. Is this worth it? I'm putting all my life, especially in football. You look at a guy who is getting hit every play in the head constantly by guys that are 220 pounds over and over again. Is it worth it to risk your brain for all these millions of dollars, that is hard to live up to your standards of living? Because when you're in the NFL and NBA and, you want to have a high standard of living, but unless you're, the top tier athlete, and have a good accountant or a good guy who manages their money, or maybe you're good at managing your money yourself, it's hard to live up to those expectations. So, moving on from that, I totally understand where he's coming from. But Bleacher Report came out and also said, are LeBron's MVP days over? And this was one of those things I laughed. When you look at your phone and you laugh and you just blow hot air out of your nose. I almost actually laughed at this. I even put in parentheses LOL after this because I kind of wanted to go on a rant about this. LeBron James is now in Los Angeles. LeBron was in Cleveland and Miami prior to coming to LA, and he's been lights out ever since. He's gone to the finals 9 straight times. Prior to this year, he's never really had a bad, nothing's really been really messing with them. So let me just give you a stat line of LeBron's for this season. He's averaging 27.4 points. He's 51% from the field, 33.9% in three-point shooting as a forward, as a forward position. He's averaging 8.5 rebounds a game, 8.3 assists a game, and a steal a game. So, you look at this and you're like, this is a fantastic stat line. But when it's LeBron, people like to scrape the fucking barrel and say, this is not MVP worthy because he's not scoring 34 points and he's not shooting 80% from the field. People just want that. They hold him to a higher standard, and I think that's kind of messed up in a way because, you look at every other player in the NBA, if they were to have their stat line, people would be like, oh my God, wow, MVP. But as soon as he does it, it's like it's almost ridiculed from him because he's LeBron James. LeBron James don't deserve to be held at a higher standard than anyone else in the NBA because they're all in the NBA. Yes, he is a Mount Rushmore player, but when you look at these stats, you got to appreciate him just as much as if someone else did them. So I just don't get how people just always try to be like, oh, well, it's just because he's a good guy and people want to hate somehow. He doesn't do anything bad in the media. I mean, and it's hard to hate the guy, so people try to hate. And I think that's where it really stems from. People are just trying to figure out a way to hate this guy. In other news in the Western Conference, we have Steph Curry, Wardell Curry. A lot of people don't know that in the NBA. Steph Curry goes by Steph Curry, but his first name is Wardell. It's Wardell Steph Curry. And so next time you're watching basketball, say you're on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, and they say, what is Steph Curry's first name? You're like, or if the question's like, what is the guy's name? What's the guy's first name on the Warriors that wears number 30? That's arguably one of the best shooters of all time. Is it Wardell, Steph, and then two random names? It's Wardell. That's his first name. So you learned something when you were on the Weekly Take podcast. I hope, you could stump someone with that one. But, and, Steph fixes his eyesight. He got contacts and he's starting to shoot way better. This is a headache for everyone in the league. Like, this guy was already shooting really, really great, and now he fixes his eyesight. So is the NBA supposed to be cheering for this? Because I'm pretty sure nobody other than the Warriors are excited for this, and, the Warrior fans. Because he's going to start shooting insane, and arguably right now he's shooting better than he was, weeks prior. So, I mean, not even arguably, there's statistics showing that he's shooting at a better rate. And, you fix your eyesight. And, man, that doctor that said, why don't you just, get some contacts? I bet you Steph's paying him some pretty good money. Or he got a good diagnostic, or, he's doing pretty good. Maybe we'll start seeing Steph Curry commercials on eyesight and how it fixed his game, even though it didn't really need much fixing because the Warriors are probably going to go back to the finals this year. But there's a lot of teams that are climbing for that spot. But in the Eastern Conference side of things, we got Bradley Beal, who was recently confronted by a fan that said he sucked, and then he looked back at them and said, I suck, and he gave him like this weird, like, funny face. This isn't really a big argument, but I really liked how he handled it. He didn't really like, oh, I suck, what about you're watching me? Well, he didn't do something like Russell Westbrook would do and totally just ridicule a fan. Yes, it's not cool to shout at these guys, but I like how Bradley Beal handled it. He handled it with comedy, and that's like a class act. I respect him for that, and he knows the fan probably didn't really mean it. He's just trying to get his attention at the end of the day, so that's probably why he acted the way he did. So back to the Warriors side of things. There was a quote from Bleacher Report that says, the engaged Warriors are a nightmare for the NBA. And this is 100% true, but why aren't they engaged every game? Why aren't the Golden State Warriors playing every game? Why aren't the Golden State Warriors not disciplined and not getting in arguments every game? Is it because they know they're like, oh, well, if we're the 1 seed in the West, we don't got to worry about nothing. Ain't nobody scaring us but Houston, and Houston ain't going to show up till the finals, so we're basically on break till then. That is basically what the Warriors are saying every game. We ain't got to worry about you because we're not going to be playing you in the Western Conference Finals or the Finals. So other than that, we're going to have our fun. We're going to get ejected from games. You could fine us all you want. I'm Kevin Durant. I'm, Nike endorsed. About to get paid next year. I ain't worried about nothing. But I just sometimes wonder, why aren't they doing this every game? Because as a professional sports team, you got guys who are dying to get out there and play as, just a minute. You got guys who have been in the G League for years and just haven't got it. And these guys are just that talented that they could goof around on a professional setting in sports and win. And they're like, well, the Golden State Warriors are 53-24 as of this podcast, so they're doing pretty good. They're at 1 in the East. Denver's 2 games back, but I think Golden State's going to get that 1 seed. An NBA legend comes out and says Giannis is better than I was when I was 24, and that was Shaquille O'Neal who stated that. And Shaq was a dominant player, and it's hard for me to see Giannis being better than him, but statistic-wise, he is. And Giannis can do a lot more things than Shaq could, but Shaq was just, he didn't really need to do all the things Giannis was doing because he was already dominating in his area of expertise, which was down low. And you make Shaq a better free throw shooter. Damn, or you make Shaq so he could shoot. Imagine how much better he would be as a player. And maybe that's what his argument is. He's like, Giannis can shoot and he's more athletic. And he's more mobile. Maybe that's what Shaq is really kind of hitting at on this point. We got one slightly big name going to the 76ers as if they really needed more players. The 76ers have all this firepower to be the third seed in the East right now. Greg Monroe has recently signed with the Sixers. I've always been a Greg Monroe kind of guy because he's just a really good offensive rebounder. I used to play with him a lot on 2K. Him and Andre Drummond were getting rebounds like for days. And when he was on Milwaukee, I didn't think he was too bad. But, I don't think someone's really found what Greg Monroe is. Like really figured his game out and coached him to that level because he has all the tangibles to be a very great center. But it's not going to happen until, coach says, this is what you got to do to articulate it. Tim Duncan is one of those players. Like, yes, he wasn't the biggest and he wasn't the fastest, but Pop knew his game. But I'm not saying Pop is the only reason Tim Duncan's good because he was very great in Wake Forest and he could have left San Antonio when he was trying to go to Orlando. And he would have been great there too. He would have linked up with T-Mac. That would have been a crazy thing to see. But, would it have been better than the championships he won in San Antonio? Who knows? A lot of people who don't know this, Tim Duncan almost went to Orlando 2 years prior after winning his second championship. And the only reason he did not sign with the Orlando Magic is because they said, you can't have your girlfriend come on the flight too. It's just got to be you. And he said, well, fuck that. That's my girl. So he stayed on the plane and went to San Antonio and then signed a deal with San Antonio, and a lot of people were saying it's because they didn't pay for his girlfriend's flight ticket. I mean, he totally could have paid for it himself, but he's like, hey, if you really want me, you got to pay for her ticket. That's some chivalry right there. That's some good stuff from my guy Tim Duncan. I respect that hardcore. He's one of the most respectable guys in the NBA, I believe. There's not a lot of guys in the NBA there is a lot of good guys out there. But just sometimes I feel like it goes pretty unsaid for fans to like someone because they're a very good person. A lot of people like NBA players or players because they're flashy in their game, and there's nothing wrong with that. But a lot of people don't really like them for just the people they are, and I like to look at some players and be like, they're a good person. I'd want to be a good person if I was at that high level of NBA. Because I always try to even do that in 2K. I always try to answer like questions nicely, be professional. But, I've never been under that situation where I have to be like that, like in front of that many people. So I have no idea what that pressure is like. Maybe one day I'll experience it, but until then, we'll talk about that. But if the playoffs ended today, I'm going to list off what teams would be in. In the Eastern Conference, we've got Milwaukee Bucks with 58-20, and then Toronto with 55-23, Sixers followed by 49-28, Celtics at the 4 seed, 46-32, Indiana 46-32, so they're tied, but the Boston Celtics have the better divisional or conference record. Moving into 6-7-8, which are Detroit, Brooklyn, and Miami, and none of these teams are above 40 wins. Detroit at the top with 39-38, and then Miami with 38-39. So you got some teams that are 500, 506, 494 on the bottom end of the East. The East has always been top heavy. Milwaukee will stomp on Miami. I would like to see Miami win a couple games, but I don't think they're going to beat Milwaukee. Toronto is going to give Brooklyn a business. Philadelphia 76ers play the Detroit Pistons. Maybe the Pistons give them a run. That'd be cool to see, but the 76ers have Jimmy Butler, Joel Embiid, Ben Simmons, Greg Monroe now, Boban, Harris. They're a good team, man. It's hard to look at the 76ers and not say they're going to win. The Boston Celtics got Indiana. If Indiana had Victor Oladipo, I'd be a little more confident in their chances. I think it's going to go to Game 6 in Boston's favor, but I'd like to see Indiana win because I really like how they're like team basketball oriented right now. So that would bring us into the next round. So that would be Milwaukee. And, man, I did not draw this out. But that means Milwaukee, Toronto, Philly, and Boston would all win. So all the top seeds, I think, would win. That means Milwaukee would play Boston, and Toronto would play Philly. Toronto beats Philly. Milwaukee beats the Pacers. And Milwaukee beats the Celtics. And then Milwaukee plays Toronto, and Toronto beats Milwaukee. I think Kawhi Leonard is going to take over in the playoffs, and I don't think anyone's going to stop him. Danny Green, Siakam, Marc Gasol. That is a very good team, and their bench is even better. So Toronto's coming out of the East. Then we got the West, which can very well flop around. It's not all, all the teams have clinched, but there's some spots that could be jumped. There's 4 games left in the season. Golden State Warriors have basically clinched the 1 seed with 53-24. Denver 51-26. Houston 50-28. Portland at 49-28 at the 4 spot. At the 5 spot, we got Utah with 47-30. LA Clippers 47-31. San Antonio 45-33. And then Oklahoma is also 45-33. But again, San Antonio has a better conference record, so they get the tiebreaker. So right now, the Spurs and the Thunder are fighting for a spot to not play the Warriors, I'm guessing. But the Thunder could give the Warriors a little bit of a run. I don't think they'd win the series, but I think they could get two wins maybe. And Oklahoma knows them well. Russell Westbrook and the KD drama would be cool to see in the playoffs, but I really don't think they'd win. As a Spurs fan, as much as I want to say the Spurs would give the Warriors a run, I don't think they will with that talented lineup. I'm just not even going to go through this because what's going to happen is Golden State's going to win, and Houston's going to go to the Western Conference Finals against them, and then the Golden State Warriors are going to win 4-2. And then it's going to be the Golden State Warriors against the Toronto Raptors, and the Golden State Warriors are going to beat the Raptors 4-1. And then Kawhi leaves, and then he goes to the Clippers. That is exactly what's going to happen. I will post that to Instagram, that little clip, because that is my hot take on the NBA this year. As much as I want to act like it's going to be something different, it probably won't be. But it's a little bit easier to depict the NBA than the NFL. The NFL, some team could come out of nowhere. Cincinnati can come out of nowhere next year and win the Super Bowl, and everyone would be like, well, I can kind of see it. And then you're like, oh, wow, that they have the team to do it. But, here it's like, well, Golden State's winning it, so let's get over it. All right, NFL. The Ravens head coach John Harbaugh says the NFL draft should be sooner. Do you blame the guy? I do not blame. I think he is 100% correct. I think it should be right after the combine instead of after all this drama, but I understand they have to space it out for, college basketball to have its time during the year, and a lot of people are going to be like, they're not going to think of other sports, but, you got baseball just starting up. You got college basketball, March Madness, which is a huge thing. You got all this stuff going on, so it's hard to have all NFL all year, and maybe the NFL is like strategically planning, well, if we have the regular season here, we've got the playoffs here, the combine here, the draft here, and then free agency here and preseason here. That's all you really need. They have it down to a science. They're one of the biggest businesses in the country right now, so I don't think they're really sweating on moving it because they're like, hey, man, we're good. So I don't think the moving it is going to be anytime soon. But I do think it would be really cool. Sorry, pardon my yawn. To see it sooner. And then in the NFC side of things, we got Russell Wilson gives the Seahawks a April 15th contract extension deadline. So he's basically saying, you guys need to give me a contract by April 15th so we can get this out of the way and we could just get to training. And I feel like that's how Russell Wilson said it. Who knows? Russell Wilson could have said, hey, I need this contract now. Or he did it in a cool Russell Wilson way. And, the Seahawks need to move because they need to be like, okay, we need to pay this guy. But do you pay him so much that your team is going to be handicapped from it? Because after Green Bay paid Aaron Rodgers, they were kind of like, ooh, this is kind of a problem here. It's not the recipe for the NFL anymore. The NFL recipe now is to get a young quarterback, not pay him that much, a young running back, not pay him that much, and build your defense, and then have a young offensive core, and then get a veteran receiver that can catch over the top, and you're going to be in the playoffs. Tell me a team, Obviously before, the Super Bowl era, that did not do that. So I'll even go through my favorite teams. You have Colin Kaepernick. He was on a rookie contract. Frank Gore was not a rookie running back, but he was not getting paid a lot of money. They go and get Randy Moss, a veteran receiver, and then they stack their linebacker core with Ahmad Brooks, Navario Bowman, Patrick Willis, and Alden Smith. What much more do you got Dante Whitner is back there. Eric Reed's back there. They had a Nnamdi Asomugha. And then, okay, let's move into Green Bay. Aaron Rodgers was not paid yet. They stacked their defensive side with Clay Matthews, Charles Woodson. They had Donald Driver. He was their guy that went over the top. Jordy Nelson was there. We go with the Baltimore side of things. Joe Flacco was not yet paid. Anquan Bolden, veteran receiver that goes over the top. Ray Rice. Stacked the defensive side of things. Ray Lewis and Ed Reed were not getting paid top tier money, but they were top, receiver. Terrell Suggs was a rookie, like a youngerish linebacker at the time. Jimmy Smith, Ladarius Webb. That's a stacked young team. On the defensive side of things, Cam Newton wasn't paid. You guys are getting when they went to the Super Bowl, you're starting to see the recipe. Jared Goff, Todd Gurley were not getting their contracts yet, and they go to the Super Bowl because they were able to stack. Oh, we'll get a Ndamukong Suh, Aqib Talib, Marcus Peters. We'll take all these guys, and look what happens. They go to the Super Bowl, but you don't win all the time. The only team in the NFL that can really, keep going the way they do it is New England. As much as people hate to admit it, New England's the only one because Tom Brady's willing to not get paid a whole bunch. They're willing to get guys that are just ready to play their role and win Super Bowls. They want to, compete at the highest level. And, Bill Belichick says, all right, well, if you're not okay with just getting a couple yards a game for this team to win on this certain formation where you only come in once a game, then we don't want you on the team. And some guys say, all right, I'll take fucking $2 million to do that. And they get to be part of a Super Bowl winning team, get to play with Tom Brady, arguably the best quarterback ever to play in the NFL. It's hard to argue someone else. Joe Montana's up there. He's not the best skill-wise quarterback, but he's definitely has the most accolades as a quarterback. But moving into that and the Super Bowl contending type of things, we got the Browns with their super team. Are they a Super Bowl contender? Are the Browns a Super Bowl contender? I believe they are. I like to believe it's going to be a competitive division this year with Pittsburgh, Baltimore, and Cincinnati's always just kind of you can't write them off kind of team. Odell is there, Jarvis Landry, Baker Mayfield. Oh, there it is. If you guys were just listening to my rant, here it is. Baker Mayfield, rookie contract. Odell, veteran receiver. Jarvis Landry, good receiver. Kareem Hunt comes in 8 games after. Nick Chubb, rookie running back. So that gives them, okay, yeah, we'll go get some more people in free agency. And look what's going to happen. I'm just saying the recipe could happen. So following my recipe or my formula or my equation, the Browns could be in the Super Bowl if they play their cards right. But for the sake of this podcast, I'm truthful with you guys. I really do believe that they could go far. I am not a Browns fan. I don't cheer for them, but I could see the truth behind it. If you want my honest opinion of them, like my personal opinion without the podcast, I don't think they're going to go anywhere. So, because I'm a Ravens fan, but that's just, little stuff. I always just try to hate on the Browns because they're in our division. But for the sake of this and for the truth for you guys, I could give you the truth. Not my hot take or, just bullshit. But sources say that Odell Beckham spoke this trade into existence. And do you blame the guy? He wants to play with Baker. He wants to go play for Cleveland. He saw what happens when you go to Cleveland and you bring happiness to them, like what LeBron did and what Baker did the following year. They doubled their wins. I mean, he's like, all right, and then my guy from LSU's there. Well, I want to go there. Yeah, are you kidding me? If my cousins were on a team in a league or something, and I was on another one, it wasn't going too well, and I saw they were on the come up, but they weren't necessarily the best team, and I could go there and help give them my my skill set and help propel that to like a championship, hell yeah, I'd want to go. So yeah, I'd speak that into existence too. I don't blame Odell for that. And then lastly in the NFL, there's not too much going on in the NFL world right now just because a lot of other sports are going on. You got baseball just starting up, and then you got college basketball, which the Final Four. But should Jordy Nelson unretire to play with Aaron Rodgers, I think it would be cool to see him just unretire and come in. Even I don't want the old Jordy and Aaron. Obviously, I do as an NFL fan, but I just want to see like a touchdown catch and that be all over the place just for a day. Not too much longer than a day though, because then it gets a little overdone. But I think it'd be cool to see one more touchdown pass. Moving into college basketball, we got John Morant from Murray State declares for the draft, as well as Kobe White from UNC declaring for the draft. We've got a lot of big-name guys going into the draft this year. These two players are very great, and I think they're going to help a lot of NBA teams are really liking this draft. You got a lot of guys who are coming in making big names. You got Zion and RJ, who are the first freshmen to make the AP All-American first team since DeMarcus Cousins and John Wall. Like, you look at that and you're like, oh my God, like there's got to be some significant, like something to that. You gotta look at Zion and RJ and respect it. Even if you're not a Duke guy, you gotta be like, damn, these guys are really good. Even though as stacked as that team is, I am disappointed that they're not winning the championship this year because that team is too talented to not win. It's almost insulting, but here's the thing: it makes you show that being familiar with the tournament and being like a veteran in the college sort of things, and experience plays a huge part in this this tournament. You could be the 15 seed and you can win it, and that's the magic thing about it. And that's what a lot of people like about it. That's what I like about it. Some people argue and say that the March Madness bracket is annoying and they don't like seeing low seeds play in the Final Four because they're like, oh, this isn't the best teams. And that is a very valid point. But you got to look at it. These teams, everyone knew what they were getting into in the March Madness. They knew that the 15 seed couldn't come in and beat the 1 seed. It could happen.Gonzaga lost to Auburn. They were 1 seed losing to a 5 seed. Texas Tech beat Gonzaga. I am sorry. Auburn beat UNC. But looking at the Final Four type of things, or the games, we got Virginia versus Auburn and Texas Tech versus MSU. And I'm going to give you my picks, and I'm going to give you who I want to win it. I want Auburn to beat Virginia just because it's underdogs. I'm always going to pick the underdogs. And then I want MSU to beat Texas Tech. I believe MSU will probably win the tournament if they go against Auburn, but I want Auburn to win it. So I want Auburn to win it. For some reason, I just like Auburn's colors, and that sometimes is a factor for me to like to pick a team. But that is not the only reason I'm picking them. I really like the way they play basketball. They are also really relying on the three-point this year, though, as with a lot of teams in the NBA and the NCAA and everything. A lot of guys like to live and die by the three, which is not a bad thing because look how it treats Clay and Steph. They are champions. So I don't think they're really too upset about it. Ray Allen ain't too upset about it because he saved the Heat that 1 year against the Spurs. So, the three-point line is deadly, but could very well, benefit you. Because if you make fucking 10 threes and the other team makes 10 twos, you're going to win the game. But, as soon as you get to players like Kawhi Leonard and Paul George who are better at, defending the perimeter, the three-point line is starting to sort of back up a little bit. But you can't tell me when Paul George is playing Golden State that he's going to be able to stop Steph and Clay from making at least, a couple threes, if not a handful of them, because their offense is generated to create that space for them, whether that be 4 screens or it's moving on offense. A lot of, basketball people at the Y and at the rec I play at my college, people don't move on offense. If you're standing on the three-point line, here's my rant. If you're standing on the three-point line at the YMCA or at the rec and there's one guy dribbling and everyone's just standing there, you're not going to fucking score unless the guy, on the very top can shoot like Steph Curry. If you're just like passing the ball and you're not cutting or you set a screen and you don't cut to the basket, things aren't going to happen. It's just simple shit, I'm not no expert in basketball, but I do know a little bit of knowledge to say if you're not moving on offense, we're not going to get anything done, and we're going to lose, and then we're going to go home pissed and play Fortnite all night. And we're going to be like, fucking I couldn't hit shit because you weren't moving on offense. So don't blame them because they weren't making their shots. It's because you weren't moving. Anyways, this has been Weekly Take episode 25. Thank you guys so much for listening. Don't forget this episode is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and SoundCloud. And I also post micro content clips for 1-minute clips on Facebook and Instagram. If you guys ever want to get a hold of me, feel free to message me on Instagram through Weekly Takes page or even my personal page. And don't forget, I also run another podcast named Dom Joseph Podcast. I'd love for you guys to come listen to that. Other than that, this has been episode 25. I am your host. Thank you guys so much for listening.